In 1994, Alice in Chains released their second EP, Jar of Flies, one of my favorite releases from the band. It featured the haunting yet powerful song Nutshell. Today, let's take a deep dive into the song, its meaning, and its lasting legacy. I also want to hear from you guys, your thoughts on the song and what you think it means. Alice in Chains was formed in Seattle in 1987. The band's original lineup consisted of vocalist LAYNE STALEY, guitarist Jerry Cantrell, bassist Mike Starr, and drummer Sean Kinney. The band took its name from Staley's previous group, Alice in Chains, kind of like Guns N' Roses. The quartet quickly became a prominent part of the so-called grunge movement alongside other Seattle bands including Nirvana, Pearl Jam, and Soundgarden. Their sound, though, was deeply rooted in heavy metal and great harmonies. Guitarist Jerry Cantrell told the Age newspaper in 1994, "I've always been a fan of bands that had great harmonies. I love heavy music and I love heavy rock, but you want a marriage between the two. I'm not into bands that just play speed thrash stuff." The group's debut album, Facelift, would come out in 1990 and of course featured the hit single Man in the Box. The album's success helped Alice gain a dedicated following and establish them as one of the leading bands of the grunge movement. In fact, they would be the first of the big four grunge bands to have a gold record. Personally, I feel like Facelift is often overlooked in the band's discography. There's some really great tracks in addition to Man in the Box. Bleed the Freak, I really love the live version, We Die Young, Sea of Sorrow, and It Ain't Like That. Then in early 1992, the group released their first EP, Sap. It proved to be another successful release, going gold, and it produced a successful hit in the song Got Me Wrong, which was featured in the 1994 film Clerks. It provided a tiny glimpse into the softer side of the band, something they tapped into for their second EP, Jar of Flies. By the end of '92, Alice released what is arguably their crown jewel of their career and one of the most brutally dark and honest records of the whole grunge era, Dirt. The album included hits like Wood, Rooster, Them Bones, Down in a Hole, as well as Angry Chair. And it also showcased the band's ability to blend heavy riffs with introspective and dark lyrics. Dig a little deeper and you'll find some other great songs. My personal favorites include Rain When I Die, Damn That River, and Junkhead. During and after the tour of Dirt, Alice faced a period of turmoil. Frontman LAYNE STALEY'S struggles with addiction were becoming more pronounced, and the group soon fired original bassist Mike Starr in early 1993 due to his drug use. But at the time, the band told the press the split had more to do with priorities. Alice claimed they wanted to keep touring, while Starr wanted to be home. He was soon replaced by Aussie bassist and one-time tourmate Mike Inez. By the summer of '93, hot off the heels of playing Lollapalooza, Alice wanted to hit the studio again. They told their label Columbia that they had hundreds of songs written when in reality they hadn't written anything new. They told the same story to Toby Wright, who was chosen to work on the release. He had spoken to Jerry Cantrell prior to hitting the studio in Seattle and asked the band to send him songs they were working on, to which Jerry responded that by the time they sent the producer the tapes, the songs would already be done. Jerry instead told Wright to meet the band in Seattle. When Wright showed up, Jerry told him that they had no songs, so the producer asked him what the band wanted to do since London Bridge Studios had been booked for 10 days. Jerry responded, "Is it okay if we just jam for the next 10 days? To which Wright responded, "Yeah, best band in the world jamming, what bad could happen? I didn't have anything better to do." Drummer Sean Kinney remarked to Guitar World, "After playing loud music for a year, we'd come home and the last thing we wanted to do was crank up the amps right away. That stuff was written on buses and whenever we had downtime. We did Jar of Flies to see how it was to record with bassist Mike Inez. We went to the studio with no songs written to check out the chemistry. It all fell into place." We thought it would be a waste not to put that material out. The recording of Jar of Flies was an around-the-clock affair, with the band spending anywhere between 14 to 18 hours per day in the studio. But the band was super efficient. They'd work out an idea and soon come up with an arrangement. The band members recorded most of their parts in 1 or 2 takes. For the song I Stay Away, the band even brought in a 4-piece string section, with Wright asking Jerry if he wanted to chart out what the string section should play. Jerry said no, and instead he sat down with the string section and told them what he had in mind. David Hillis, who worked at London Bridge Studios, recalled seeing Jerry guiding the string section. I remember Jerry being fearless, as he usually is, very confident, and going out there with a guitar in the main room where the orchestra is sitting and showing them the parts on his guitar, what he was hearing, what he wanted, which is not something you normally do because orchestra musicians usually don't work that way. The Jar of Flies EP was recorded and mixed in just 7 days. The band took a different approach with this record, incorporating more acoustic elements and focusing on melody and atmosphere. Cantrell admitted to the Age newspaper that since grunge appeared to have peaked already, and their last 2 records sold so well, there wasn't going to be a huge marketing push behind the record, with the paper funny enough writing in early 1994. Sadly, that means the very musical and popular gurus who could use the listen likely won't get to hear it, adding, and why bands like Alice in Chains continue to make easy targets for critics with a one-dimensional view of hard rock and the musicians that play it. Well, it ended up being a pretty awful take because Jar of Flies was released on January 25th, 1994, and it proved to be an immediate success. It debuted at the #1 spot on the album charts, making it the first EP to ever achieve such a feat. It was also notable because it knocked off Mariah Carey's album Music Box from the #1 spot. It went on to sell 2 million copies within its first year of release and eventually went 4 times platinum, thanks to the singles No Excuses and I Stay Away, with the later topping the mainstream rock tracks chart, while I Stay Away peaked at number 10. It's okay. Had a bad day. There was, of course, the memorable video for I Stay Away that used claymation. In fact, those claymation dolls are now sitting at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland. Of course, one of the other standout tracks on Jar of Flies is today's topic, Nutshell. The song's lyrics were written by Staley, while the music was written by the rest of the band. It's a deeply emotional and introspective song that has resonated with fans for decades. While it was never released as a single, it's long been heralded as some of Alice in Chains' best and most personal work. The song's lyrics, open to interpretation, in my opinion, reflect LAYNE's struggles with addiction, loneliness, privacy, and the pressures of fame. The music features a haunting melody and a minimalist arrangement that allows LAYNE's vocals to take center stage. The lyrics for Nutshell are a poignant reflection of LAYNE's inner turmoil. The song opens with the lines, These words convey a sense of disillusionment and the relentless passage of time. I remember LAYNE gave an interview to Rolling Stone in 1996, where he talked about wanting to be a rock star at a young age, not really understanding what the trappings of fame were. The publication wrote, "At 12, Staley started playing drums. It was about this time he first encountered sex and drugs and rock and roll." He remarked, "I read my first article about a major 80s rock star, and he was in a limo doing lines of blow on a mirror and he had babes under each arm. And that's when I decided I wanted to be a rock star." He would go on to state that he didn't know what blow was and he didn't really know what sex was, but to him, being an impressionable young kid, it seemed impressive to him, especially considering it was written in a magazine. Music also provided an escape for LAYNE, who wasn't one of the cool kids in school. The misprinted lies could also refer to the media's treatment of the band and Staley in particular. In the same piece with Rolling Stone, LAYNE remarked, "I found out through the internet that I have AIDS. I learned I was dead. Where else could I find these things?" The band's contentious relationship with the media began in 1992 with Dirt. If you read any interview or publication doing a piece on the band and And more often than not, they will bring up the band's lyrics about drug use. Just one example is from a 1992 piece from the St. Petersburg Times, which wrote, "The songs on Dirt portray loneliness, despair, alienation, and suicide, and perhaps most controversially, taboo topics like heroin addiction." Jerry, who was interviewed for the piece, told the paper that there was a chance that some people could misinterpret the band's songs like Junkhead, but he clarified that the song begins a 5-track cycle that looks at an addict's experience from the feelings of invincibility to the feelings of desperation and misery.
Yet I fight this battle all alone. No one to cry to, no place to go home.
This line speaks to Staley's feelings of isolation and challenges he faced in his battle with addiction. A person can't overcome their addiction unless they themselves really want to get clean. On one hand, you have lots of money like Layne did and resources to get clean, but at the same time, you can't go out and be a normal person too. So in a sense, I'm guessing he's feeling isolated, and it's difficult to find meaning and connection in life that way. Staley's lyrics are a raw and unfiltered expression of his pain and vulnerability. This line reflects the invasive nature of fame and the toll it takes on one's sense of self. It could also be a reference to how addiction has taken over his life. It's become all-encompassing. This part of the song could deal with the speculation and rumors I'd previously discussed. Kathleen Austin, who was from Seattle and worked with a bunch of the grunge bands there, talked about how the success of Facelift resulted in Layne struggling with his newfound fame, recalling to author David DeSola. She talked about how even a simple thing like going to the ATM would be written about in the newspaper. Couple this with all the speculation of Layne's drug use by nosy journalists, with him telling Spin in 1993 that he was interviewed by a French journalist who accused him of being high during the interview. Layne recalled, "I asked him if he was on heroin. The guy got all offended. Well, I said, now you know how I feel."
If I can be my own, I feel better there.
Layne sadly passed away in April of 2002 at the age of 34, losing his battle with addiction. It gives new meaning to the line I just played.
For you guys, I mean, how did you deal with your grieving at that point? I mean, when you found out that we had lost Layne, what was that like for the three of you guys?
I started smoking. I never smoked for like 35 years, and
Layne's funeral.
I started smoking that day, man. I was like,
yeah, my record actually came out. Was coming out that week, and we got the news. And you know, I mean, the thing is like, you know, when you're inside that's sort of a wild ride which we were on, and it's, you know, everything is going by so fast, and you know, you pick up some bad habits sometimes to deal with things, myself included, and you know, that's down the road with enough use ends up killing you, you know, or sapping the soul out of you, and you know, and unfortunately we lost him, you know, and you know, it's something that was, for me, it was crushing. You know, it was crushing not only to stop right at the peak of the band, pretty much. You know, I mean, we were ready to maybe hit another echelon there, I think, artistically, but you know, personally, it was, you know, we lost our best buddy and our best friend, so that's a lot to go through, and it's an experience that everybody goes through in life. It's not unique to us, and you know, so I guess how you decide to pick up and move on and live your life after that is as important, if not more important, than what you did before.
Alice in Chains performed Nutshell for the first time at the Memorial Hall in Kansas City on September 22nd, 1993. The song was, of course, later featured in their iconic 1996 MTV Unplugged performance. The long instrumental intro really creates this anticipation and tension. The band comes out on stage minus Layne, and he finally emerges before the first verse kicks in. He hadn't played any shows with Alice since early '94, and he made only a handful of public appearances over the past several years by this point, most notably with the supergroup Mad Season. Layne, to a lot of people, looked like a shell of his former self. It was clear he was still in the throes of addiction, but he still gave an incredible performance. Bassist Mike Inez was asked about what song reminds him most of Layne. Looking back, recalling, I think the number one for me is Nutshell. Layne was very honest with his songwriting, and in Nutshell, he really put everything in a nutshell for everybody. That song still gets me choked up whenever I play it. Although Nutshell was never released as a single, it has become one of Alice in Chains' most beloved songs. John Perellis of the New York Times remarked about the song's similarities to compositions by Canadian artist Neil Young. That in 2011, Alice in Chains ex-bassist Mike Starr passed away due to a drug overdose. The band, which reformed in 2005 with new frontman William Duvall, have once again started playing Nutshell during their live shows. In 2011, the quartet dedicated Nutshell to the memories of Layne and Mike during their concerts. At a show at the French festival Hellfest on January 24, 2018, Jerry dedicated the song to his longtime friend and Pantera drummer Vinnie Paul, who had died 2 days before the concert. In 2013, Nutshell was ranked as number 9 on Rolling Stone's Reader's Poll of the 10 saddest songs of all time. The song has also been covered numerous times over the years, most notably by Dallas Green of City and Colour, Corey Taylor of Slipknot and Stone Sour, Aaron Lewis of Stained, Layne's personal friend and the late great Mark Lanegan, as well as Shinedown and Seether.
Chase me spreading light. Waste little time to time. And yet I fight. And yet I fight this battle all alone. No one to cry to. No place to call home.
So let me know, guys, your thoughts on the song, and do you think it's one of Alice in Chains' best tracks? As always, if you have suggestions for future topics, use the link in the description box below, and we'll see you again in Rock and Roll Stories. Take care.